Welcome back to the Lingua Loom. Today we're going to start with another video of Semantics series, which is episode number 3. Sense versus reference is the topic that we're going to discuss. It is two expressions, but referring to one thing, totally different meanings. So it is the distinction that changed linguistics and philosophy forever. So let's start with this one. The first ever basic thing about this topic, the man behind the idea, he initiated this. This is Gottlob Frege. In 1892, he's a German philosopher and mathematician. So, Frege published a short but revolutionary paper titled, this is written in German, Übersinn und Bedeutung, and sense and reference. So this is its translation. It asks a deceptively simple question, which is, if two expressions refer to the same thing, why don't they mean the same thing? So this is a philosophical question. His answer reshaped linguistics, philosophy, and logic for the next 130 years. So he plays a major role in this semantics debate. So let's start with the first ever point. That is one thing, two ways of saying it. Here is the puzzle that launched the entire field. Consider these two expressions here. The first one is the morning star and the evening star. Both refer to the same object in the sky, the planet Venus, and yet for centuries people thought that they were two different celestial bodies. Well, they're the same star. Ancient astronomers described them separately. They carried different images, different histories, and different feelings. How can two expressions mean the same thing and yet clearly mean something different? Well, this is the question that Frege asked and answered, that because they have the same reference but different senses. I mean, the reference is same, that the planet, star, Venus, but senses are different as they're considered different according to their location at different time. One is in the morning and evening. So that's basically changed the whole sense of it. So the single insight is what this entire essay is about. The same reference but different senses, sorry. And move. The first half we're going to discuss is sense, which is Sinn in German. The sense of the expression is the way it presents or describes its referent. So a sense is a way to describe a referent that is outside object. It is a mode of presentation, the cognitive path your mind takes to reach that thing in the world. So sense is in the mind and reference is outside. It is physical and sense is abstract, it is in your mind, while reference is physical, or it can be abstract too or imaginary too, like fairies, these sort of. But you need sense to refer to fairies. So sense lives in the mind, it is how the expression characterizes its object, the descriptive content and the angle of approach the concept evoked. So let's look at the reference. The reference of the expression is the actual entity in the world that the expression picks out. It is the object itself, physical, abstract, or imaginary, that the expression points to. So reference lives in the world. It is the target of the expression, the thing, the person, place, or concept that the expression identifies. It is about this. So easy to be saying sense is in the mind and reference is in the outside world. So sense is the mode of presentation, that how the thing is being described, what concept does the expression evoke, lives in language and cognition. So you need language to think. It is about that, and it is in your mind. Whereas reference is the object in the world. It is what actual thing does it point to, what entity does it identify. It lives in reality. So these are the basic differences between the two of them. Then let's move forward to the Frege's famous example, the Venus problem. This is one of the most famous examples in the history of semantics. So let's look at it. The morning star and the evening star. The morning star sees just before sunrise in the east. So this is the ancient name, Phosphorus, which is Greek. The sun is the bright star that appears at dawn in the eastern sky. Sun's a unique description. So Venus, same reference as morning star and evening star, refer to the same thing. Both refer to the same object in the world. The evening star is seen just after the sunset in the west. Ancient name is Hesperus, which is also Greek. So it senses the bright star that appears at dusk in the western sky. So it is also a unique description. So let's look at it. Why does this matter so much? When astronomers first discovered that these two stars were the same planet, it was an empirical discovery, a fact about the world found through observation. If both expressions had exactly the same meaning, this discovery would be trivial, like saying Venus is Venus. But it wasn't trivial, it was the major scientific finding that is only possible because the two expressions have different senses. They describe the planet in different ways even though they share the same reference. So this example is quite famous because first it's believed that morning star and evening star were both different. But when astronomers discovered it that they're same, so it was a shocking discovery that how can they be same while treating them for a long period of time as both different. So this example got famous because of that. So this is the Frege's core claim is two expressions can have the same reference pointing to the same object in the world while having different senses because they present or describe that object in different ways. So let's move to the third part, which is sense versus reference at a glance. So it is a kind of difference, easy for understanding. So this is a dimension, and this is sense and reference, but it is the way an expression describes or presents its object. So the actual object that is outside in the world, that is reference. So where does it live? Sense live in mind, in language and cognition, whereas reference lives in the world and reality. So the key question, which is the third point, is how is it described? Well, this is about sense, and reference is what does it point to? The fourth point is can two expressions share it? So in sense is yes, synonyms share sense, but so do different descriptions of the same object. In reference, it is yes, the morning star and the evening star share the same referent Venus. Okay, let's scroll down a bit. So, next point is, can it exist without the other? Well, the sense is yes. The present king of France has sons but no reference, so it's taken for granted that France has no king at the time, so it is hard to describe this, which is making no sense. The about reference is no reference without sense. You cannot point to something without some way of picking it out. And there's a Frege German times that a sin and between time. So this is about the sense cannot exist without reference, and reference cannot exist without sense. Like if you're thinking of a flower rose, you're thinking in your mind that it is red in color, it is a symbol of love or liking. So they refer to the real world flower rose. So the concept is in your mind, and the thing that it is associated with, like rose, that is the referent. So these are the sense and reference explorer. So we're going to click. Anyone understand this? The morning star. So let's look at it. Let's scroll it a bit more. Yes, now it's easy to see. Sun is the morning star, the bright celestial body visible in the eastern sky just before sunrise. The sun presents Venus as a dawn phenomenon. Its mode of presentation is temporal, that is in the morning, and directional. It shows direction, which is east. It evokes earlierness, beginnings, the calm before day. So these are the meanings that are associated with the morning star. So the description of it is time plus direction. Then comes the reference, which is the Venus, the planet. So the second planet from the sun in our solar system. This is the actual physical object in the world that the expression picks out. The referent. It exists independently of how expression describes it. So no matter you describe it as a morning star and evening star, it's up to you. Well, the Venus is already there. It does not need one specific sense. It exists for both. Oh, where I'm going. Let's check the next one, the current PM, Prime Minister of UK, United Kingdom. So this is the example, the current Prime Minister of the UK. The sense is whoever holds the office of Prime Minister of the United Kingdom at this present moment. The mode of presentation is institutional and temporal, defined by political role and time frame. So this is how you describe meaning or sense in semantics. So what is the role of Prime Minister? It is institutional, and this position is role-based sense. Then comes the reference, whoever holds the office now. The reference changes over time. It was Thatcher, then Major, then Blair, and so on. The sense stays the same. The reference depends upon when you use the expression. This shows the stable sense can have shifting reference, but this shows that these statements say the same, but whenever the prime ministers are changing, its sense depends upon that. So the stable sense, but reference is shifting as it depends upon each prime minister. Then let's check another example, the author of Hamlet. So the sense is the author of Hamlet, the person who wrote the play Hamlet. This is definite description, a unique identifying description that, if satisfied, picks out exactly one individual. The sense is entirely linguistic and conceptual. So it is a role sense, describing the role of a person. Then let's look at the reference, that is William Shakespeare. The reference is William Shakespeare, the English playwright from Stratford-upon-Avon. So scholars debate Shakespearean authorship, but the expression author of Hamlet still has a clear sense regardless of who the reference turns out to be. So the reference here is obviously whenever the author of Hamlet is talked about, it's going to be Shakespeare. So it is some senses have definite reference irrespective of whatever the situation. So it is about that. Then comes the capital of France. So in this sense is the city that serves as the administrative and political capital of France. The seat of government. This is role-based definite description. Anyone who understands French geography grasps this sense. Then the referent is Paris, actual city on the Loom River. It is sign or scene. With its 2+ million inhabitants, the Eiffel Tower and the Elysee Palace. Elysee. Well, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. It will be helping others too. Paris satisfies the description perfectly, sense leads directly to reference here. So here the sense is the capital of France, while it refers directly to its referent, which is Paris. So here comes the other example, the present king of France. So here the sense is perfectly clear and understandable, a male monarch currently ruling over France. The mode of presentation is institutional, which is the king, national, having nation France, and temporal, which is time is present, it's present time. Every competent language user grasps this sense immediately, while no reference exists here, as France is a republic. There is no king of France. This expression reaches into the world and finds nothing. No object satisfies this description. The reference is empty. This is Frege's crucial insight. The sense can exist perfectly well without reference. So here it is clearly shown that sometimes sense is there, but reference is not. Like in your mind, there is sense of fairies, but can you tell in the real world where the example is? So it's hard to find. Sometimes, well, in fact, this is impossible. There are no real fairies that are flying and fluttering their wings. So let's look at H2O, which is another example. So this is a scientific example, which is sense here is chemical and scientific. A molecule consisting of 2 hydrogen atoms bonded to 1 oxygen atom. This is technical formal mode of presentation used in chemistry and scientific discourse. So H2O is scientific name of its referent, which is water. The reference is the same substance we call water in everyday language, the colorless, odorless liquid. Water and H2O share the same reference but have very different senses. One is everyday, one is chemical, just like morning and evening star. So it is same as morning and evening star. With other example, there is a reference which is direct Paris. And another example, the present king of France, there is no reference. So here the author of Hamlet direct reference, where in this example the current Prime Minister of the UK, here the reference depends upon that he is currently playing that role. So these are the examples. Let's move forward. across languages, sense and reference in Urdu. So it is not just limited to English or European philosophy, it is a universal feature of human language. So I have taken example from another language which is Urdu for understanding. So this is Aftab and Suraj. Aftab literally means water of fire, Persian origin. Since it describes the sun through a poetic, evocative image. The blazing water-like spreading of fire across the sky, a warm literary mode of presentation using classical Urdu poetry. So it is used in poetic sense, where it refers to the real-world object, which is Suraj, which is sun, everyday word for sun. Both Haftab and Suraj refer to the exact same astronomical object, the star at the center of our solar system, which is sun. Same reference, but the sense is entirely different. One is everyday, one is poetic. So let's look at another example. Watan, another one is mulk. So Watan is homeland, motherland. It is emotionally loaded. It is a sense which carries deep connotations to belonging, sacrifice, and emotional attachment. The sense is rich with cultural and political meaning, evoking patriotism, loss, and identity. Whereas its referent is mulk, which is country, state, it's neutral and administrative. Both Watan and Mulk can refer to the same nation-state, but Watan's sense is emotionally charged while Mulk is administrative and neutral. Same reference, deeply different sense. So these are examples from Urdu language. Let's move forward. Sense without reference. So it is one of the Frege's most important observation. An expression can have a clear, understandable sense, yet have no reference. So this is the same as above, which is the present king of France. So it has sense, but no reference as now. It used to have in the past, but not now, as France is no longer a monarch. It's a republic, so there's no king of France. So philosopher Bertrand Russell later built his entire theory of description on analyzing exactly these kind of cases, showing that Frege's distinction has deep implication for logic and truth. That is about this. What Bertrand Russell studies is one of the greatest philosophers and political semanticians too. Then let's look at other examples that are senses without reference. So here it is. Unicorn in the garden. Perfectly senses clear horse with a horn in the garden belonging to me. But unicorn do not exist, so no reference. Then other one is the largest prime number. Clear sense, but there is no largest prime number as they are infinite, no reference at all. Another one is the first person to walk on the moon, clear sense, and the real reference is Neil Armstrong. Let's move forward. Why this distinction matter? The why sense and reference distinction. What is, well, it is real. It has practical consequences for how we think about language, meaning, communication, and even now in the world of artificial intelligence, which is AI. So meaning is always there. It is in different parts. The first one is sense versus reference. So let's look at literary analysis. That importance, the voice, sense, and reference distinction. So the first one in literary analysis, when a poet calls a son of thou versus Sirius, they are choosing specific sense for effect. Understanding this is fundamental to literary criticism. Every word choice is a choice of sense, not just reference. So when you choose one word over another, meaning change, situation change. So that's why sense and reference study is important. Then law and definition. This one, legal document must be precise about both sense and reference. The suspect entered the building and John Smith entered the building may have the same reference but different legal senses and implications. So here the suspect and the John only just nouns are switched, but whole situation is changed here in regarding meaning. So the next one is AI and NLP. It is natural language processing must resolve references it, he, that company to actual entities. Named entity recognition is essentially a reference resolution tool. Frege's work is fundamental to computational semantics, so this shows the importance of Frege's work in defining and building NLPs, because you have to be specific when it comes to meaning, as computer run on just probabilities. So the probabilities have to be very much accurate and specific. Then translation studies. A translator must perceive sense, not just reference. Two words in the different language may share the same reference but carry a completely different sense. And a good translation captures the sense, not just the object being described. So this shows the importance of sense and references translation studies. So here it is, the statement by Frege. The sense of the proper name is grasped by everyone who knows the language sufficiently, but that reference, the actual object, is illuminated only from one side at a time by the sense. So this shows that everyone can understand. Okay, this is what is being talked about, but understanding sense is important in understanding the reference, like in morning star and evening star. Then let's look at common confusions. So the first one is sense and reference or just denotation and connotation. No, it's not denotation connotation from late topology is about literal and associative meaning within a word. Sense and reference is about the mode of presentation versus the actual object in the world. Different framework, different questions. So denotation and connotations are about meaning of a word that a word carry, a dictionary meaning and a cultural meaning, whereas sense is concept associated with the real world entity which is a referent. Then the next one is common confusion. If two words have the same meaning, they have different reference. Well, not necessarily. My neighbor and the person who live next to me may have the same reference today, but the reference changes if you move. The sense is stable, the reference depends on the context. So it is the same like above example, the current Prime Minister of UK, that depends upon who is the Prime Minister at that time. So the correct way to think is sense determines reference, but reference does not determine sense. Different senses can point to the same object. The same sense can point to the different object at different time. Sense is stable, conceptual component. Reference is what it picks out in the world. So sense can determine reference, but not references does not determine sense as like some objects. So there's some concepts that are in the mind, but they don't have any reference. So coming to the end, let's begin with a quiz part. That is starting from the first one. In Frege's framework, what is the German word he used for sense? So this is it, clearly close. So this is the one that he used. Then let's move to the next one. The morning star and the evening star have the same dash but different dash. Sense, reference sense, connotation, denotation, lexemorphic. Well, they're already out, so we have to jam in between these two. So the morning star and the evening star have the same reference but different sense. Well, here it is, option number B. The reference is Venus, same reference but different senses. Then let's move to the other one. The present king of France has a clear sense but no reference. What does this prove? Has clear sense but no reference. That sense and reference are always identical. Well, we have discussed that they can't be, so it's not wrong. Well, French grammar is irregular. Well, we haven't discussed it in the whole lecture, so it is out of the options too. That expression without references are meaningless. I can't be true that there or expression like imagination, you can't prove it, but it's in your mind. So sense is there, reference is not. An expression can have a sense without having a reference in the real world. Well, let's go with this. Oh, it's right. So here it is Frege's claim that an expression can have a clear, well-formed sense while failing to refer to anything in the real world. Like his example of unicorn. And let's move on to the next one. Which of these best describe what Frege meant by reference? An emotional association of the world. Well, this is connotation and denotation, so it is out. The grammatical role of the expression. Well, we're not discussing grammar, so it is out. So we have to discuss between these two. The way an expression describes its object, the actual object in the world that the expression picks out. So let's go with this one. Well, this is correct. Reference is the actual object, entity, or state of affairs in the world that can express, pick out. It lives in reality, not in language. So let's move on to the fifth one. Why is the discovery that the morning star and evening star are both Venus an important philosophical point? So because Venus is a planet, not a star. This is option number one. Well, this is not related to our topic, stay out of the box. Because the names are in different languages. Well, they're not, they are English. And we discussed the ancient names which are both in same language, Greek. Then because ancient astronomers are bad at science, well, this can't be true too, as it was due to the limited material at that time that they were able to identify it. Because if both expressions had the same meaning, the discovery would be trivial. It's information and proof that they have different senses. Well, this is the correct one, as we discussed it earlier. So this is, if the two expressions have identical meaning, then it should have been trivial that Venus is Venus. But its different sense is what proves it as a wow factor. Then let's move on to the last one, which is in the Urdu example of Aftab and Suraj, both refer to the sun. What differs between them according to Frege's framework? Well, their reference that point to different objects. Well, we have discussed that both refer to the sun, so it is out. The sun they present the sun in different ways, poetic and everyday. Third one is the grammatical category. One is noun and one is adjective. Well, we are not discussing categories, so it is out. Nothing differs. If reference is the same, the meaning is the same. While the differ is used, so it can't be right. So here we have discussed it earlier. This one is correct. It is one is poetic and one is everyday usage. So this is it. We have discussed the MCQs or quiz that you can use for learning and test yourself that how it actually works. So this is it for today. We'll discuss denotation versus connotation in the next video. So it is all about Frege's work, which plays a huge part in sense versus reference. I hope you understand it. That's all for today. Please do like, subscribe and share. And do comment, as it means quite a lot. And it has got to do with YouTube algorithm. Thank you. Have a good day.